You can do Nayania Baria, Nayania Manania, Manania. You can do Nayania Baria, Nayania Manania, Manania.
From the New South Wales Aboriginal Land Council, this is the A Cuppa and Yarn podcast.
Yama, and welcome to A Cuppa and Yarn, brought to you by the New South Wales Aboriginal Land Council. I'm Michelle Aleksandrovics-Lovegrove. Thanks for listening in. I hope you're enjoying our podcasts, where we speak with inspiring Aboriginal people about their lives, their memories, what inspires them, and what's important to them. Our guest this week is a young woman from a strong Wiradjuri family who's intent on making her mark in Western Sydney and beyond. Renee Thomson is part of New South Wales Aboriginal Land Council's Youth Advisory Committee and recently travelled to Geneva with councillors and other youth committee members to represent at the United Nations Expert Mechanism on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. I hope you enjoy this episode of A Cuppa and Yarn with Renee Thomson.
You can do Nayania Baria, Nayania Manania, Manania, Manania.
Renee Thomson, hello.
Hi,
Welcome to A Cuppa and Yarn.
thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming here. Now, I understand you had a bit of a nice drive in from Western Sydney this morning.
I did. Very, very clear roads, nice weather. It was a really good drive.
Now, if we can, I wouldn't mind going back to the start, or the start of Renee, when we have these cuppas and yarns, is just a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and who your mob is. So I understand that you hail from Cowra, is that right?
Yeah,
And you are a very proud Wiradjuri woman.
very proud. So my name is Renee Thomson and I am a proud Wiradjuri woman. I'm 24 years old. I currently live in Western Sydney and I was born in Kingswood. As you mentioned, so I'm a proud Wiradjuri woman. That's where my matriarchal bloodline stems from, and it's something that I hold very close to my heart.
Okay, so when you talk about your matriarchal line, I'd be very interested in knowing more about that, because I think, a lot of our mob, and for people who are non-Indigenous perhaps who don't know, Arambi Mission and some of the very, very staunch and very active families that stem from that area come from Arambi. Now that's the case with your family, isn't it?
Yes, it certainly is. So just a bit of background about me. So my nin was Frances Haroa, also known as Fenny Haroa, but she was a knee wedge. So she was born in Orange, but then spent her childhood and teen years growing up in Cowra, Leeton and Goolagong. She met her childhood sweetheart in Cowra, which was Lindsay Coe. They then had 6 kids, which included my Auntie Ann Weldon, my Auntie Bev Coe, my Auntie June Coe, my Auntie Betsy Coe, who's no longer with us, my Auntie Linda Coe, and also their first child who passed away at a young age. My nin then moved to Sydney, and actually, funny story, my mum Shirl, so my nin's great auntie, my nin's auntie, so my great auntie, introduced my nin to my grandfather Joe Haroa, who was a Pacific Islander man. And then they resettled in Mount Druitt and went on to have 5 more kids.
Wow.
Which is my Uncle Peter Haroa, who's no longer with us, my mum, Rossarina Docker, my Auntie Vicky Thompson, Joe Haroa and David Haroa. So we all stem from Cowra, Arambi Mission, up in the 32 acres up there, but have resettled in Mount Druitt. And then obviously have extended family members across Sydney and central western New South Wales.
With the Mount Druitt connection, we were having a little discussion, about Mount Druitt, you being so familiar there. So you were born and bred there, but you went away for a while and you've come back. Why's that?
I live with Dad out in Mount Druitt. My dad is a white fella. I'm actually of English and Irish descent. So one of my great-grandfathers was a commander on a ship and the other one was a convict. Grew up with Dad in the back of Mount Druitt and St Mary's, and then was able to move to the Northern Beaches with my mother and my stepfather. And then, as you said, I've come back to Mount Druitt because it's a place of belonging, and it's a place that I hold very close to my heart.
Really interesting to hear you say that about Mount Druitt and about the feeling that you have from being there, that sense of belonging. Because we got a lot of Koori mob out there, don't we?
Yeah, a lot. So we make up quite a diverse group within ourselves as blackfellas in Mount Druitt. Obviously, a lot of families have resettled to Mount Druitt. So we have family from all over see Burke, Bree, Walgett, Dubbo, up the Donovans from up north, the Stewarts from down south. There's a very big mob there. Yeah.
I don't know the exact figures now, but it has always been sort of commonly understood, and the population figures bear that out, is that, you know, contrary to a lot of popular belief around mainstream Australia, you know, the largest Aboriginal population in the country is in New South Wales, and the largest Aboriginal population in New South Wales is in Mount Druitt.
Correct.
Yeah, Mount Druitt, Blacktown area, but particularly Mount Druitt, I believe.
So the Blacktown LGA, so that covers Blacktown, then heads up to Mount Druitt, then obviously sits on the border of Penrith LGA.
Now, with your very sort of strong connections through birth and through choice, is just loving Mount Druitt and the area, you're a member of, I've got to say this, you know, we're the Land Rights Network, Darubbin Local Aboriginal Land Council.
Yes.
And you're on the board.
I am.
So 24 on the board. That's pretty staunch.
Yeah. I suppose I joined Darubbin Local Aboriginal Land Council, I want to say last year. And then was was very active in the members' meetings, went along and just had my say and ensured that my voice was heard. And
you're practicing to be an auntie, aren't you? Yeah, I can see her in 40 years' time. She'll be there. Now, tell me, who are you?
Yep. Who's your mom?
Yeah.
Why do you want to join? And I suppose it was just from that experience, like, just showing my interest in ensuring that, you know, the next generation can step up and, you know, they have someone to hand over that land rights network space to. And I was just jumping up and down saying, what are we doing about the youth? We want to all be involved. And I think that must have struck something with Kevin out there, Kevin Kavanagh. And he was very interested in, you know, giving me the opportunity to have my say on the board. And it's something that I truly do enjoy sitting on. It's opened my eyes a lot. It's made me realise the hard work and the grit that goes into running a LAUC. And as well as being on the NSWALC advisory committee, having that peak exposure to what happens on the top level and then especially what happens on the bottom level.
We'll most certainly have a chat about you on NSWALC's Youth Advisory Committee in the Cuppa and Yarn today. But just as far as you being on the board, are you the youngest member?
By far.
By far. So that's all good?
Yep. Love it. I think, I really feel like my voice is heard out there. They turned to me, was a bit nervous because after my first meeting I spoke up quite a bit and thought, I walked out thinking, did I overstep my mark? But they loved it there. Yeah. So we knew that you were going to come and you come from good stock. We weren't expecting you to come and keep your mouth shut. That's why we brought you on. Yeah.
Well, certainly, you know, as far as your family goes and your parents, your aunties, your uncles, your nin, everybody. Have you got any siblings?
I've got 3 siblings. So I've got an older sister. She's a qualified nurse and she's working in the justice sector. I also have a younger brother who is currently on a scholarship over in America for basketball.
Okay.
Very impressive.
Wow.
Very proud of him. Very proud of all of my siblings. And then my younger sister, she's currently sitting her HSC at Pimble's Ladies College.
The HSC year.
The HSC year.
Yeah, so a little bit touch and go with her at the moment, I bet.
Yes, it's very interesting. I just try and enforce to her that you can never let a mark define you. It's something that you walk out of them high school gates and no one ever asks you what your ATAR was. Like I always say to her, if people ask me what my ATAR is, it should have been an asterisk, but I've never let it define me as who I am, especially as an Aboriginal woman, given that mum and nin were denied an education. It's something that we should hold very deeply.
But talking about education, though, you are studying as well as working now. You're at Western Sydney University.
Currently deferred, but
okay,
same thing.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah.
You're still there. You're still there.
So it's a Bachelor of Health Science. Yeah, majoring in Indigenous health.
So why health?
I think, to be completely honest and pull everything out, as you spoke earlier, my mum was drilling into my head as soon as I finished high school, or leading up to the end of my study at my HSC that regardless of what we were going to do, we were going to go study something.
Mm-hmm.
She, as I spoke about, she was denied an education and denied that opportunity to go on and study further. So it was just something that I said, PE teachers are mad. Like, they're out playing sport, they're fit, they're tan. Like, I want to. Yeah, that's the first thing that I thought of. So I actually went through the alternative pathways up at Western Sydney University because my ATAR was just. I'm surprised it wasn't an asterisk, but it got me through the door. And I sat the exam, and they kind of offered, well, what do you want to study? And I thought, health science. It's not really a major background story. I think now, growing up, and since my relevant experience in my work, in my career, I can see how much we need to prioritise health, how much I will probably try and pursue health at probably a later date, but as of now, it's pretty much just going to be a PE teacher.
Do you want to? You don't want to work as a PE teacher, though, do you?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. So you're currently working at Coxin or Ridgeway, is that right? So what are you doing there?
So I'm currently a consultant, part of the team headed up by Aidan Ridgeway, former NSWALC CEO and Senator, and we work anywhere across policy, strategic advice, research, review, all levels of government, corporates, NGOs, community-controlled orgs, nationally.
How do you find navigating those waters? Because, a lot of different people, a lot of different levels of cultural adeptness, I'll say, or not. You'd meet all sorts of people, wouldn't you? So how do you navigate that?
Look, to be completely honest, at first I just didn't know how to do it. I couldn't take the step back and really understand and have that empathy towards someone who didn't have the cultural knowledge that I had. But it was, I think, sitting down having a yarn with my mum, and she kind of said, you're in a position now where it's not about you going out there and not more so judging someone, but really going hard at them because they don't know what they have. It's now your time to educate people and to really walk beside them. And so I've kind of taken it as an approach where I'm trying to be supportive and I listen to what they've got to say. I think it's a big curve, but it's understanding what they know and just helping them get to where I think people need to be, but not more so going in and rousing at them or being offended that they don't know the things that we know as blackfellas. But it is quite tricky, especially when you run into people of positions in power, and you can see the lack of cultural knowledge for our people. When I was a presenter for AIM, which was the Australian Indigenous Mentor Experience,
Yes.
I went out to a school in Western Sydney. I won't name drop them or make them shame, but one of the teachers actually come up, and so we're there obviously presenting because they have Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students. We go out there and we're presenting a NAIDOC assembly, me and my older brother or cousin, and yeah, she kind of pulled me aside and said, I just think you're amazing. I've never ever spoke to an Aboriginal person before.
Wow.
But she didn't know that she was teaching Koori kids every day. And you just take the step back, and I was like, oh, okay, well, do you know all these kids that are sitting here, they're all black? I said, but they don't look black.
Yes.
And then there's even normal things that, in some Word documents you see that people are going to speak to real Aboriginal people, or I just don't, it doesn't click to me. But how I do manage it is, I think the same thing is I go back. You can jump up and down and, go off your head, but you just end up being that angry black person in the office that everyone steps on eggshells around. So if you can find that balance where, I think that's what I'm really learning now. One of my good mates said to me, Renee, you're going to have a real issue with being true to who you are, but then also playing that game. So you have to walk the line. You have to be able to, really be able to control your emotions and what's been instilled in you for so long, so you don't push people away because your emotions get the best of you. But it's something that I'm still trying to learn, and it's not an easy task. I think I was talking to a lady this morning about it, still looking into my mum's eyes, I can still see the pain. So it's not something that I take lightly, but I'm probably a bit more aware of keeping my emotions intact. Yeah. It's hard. It's very hard.
This is A Cuppa and a Yarn. I'm Michelle Aleksandrovics-Lovegrove, and I'm speaking with Renee Thomson.
Land Council members, are your contact details up to date? Have you moved home recently? Got a new post office box? Are you even sure that your address, your phone number, maybe your email address has been entered into the members registry correctly? Well, there's only one way to be certain, and now's the best time to do it. The NSWALC election is coming up soon on November 30. So, having your contact details up to date has never been more important. Contact Your LAUC today. It might just save you a lot of hassle tomorrow.
You have actually sort of set up a whole a leadership network in Western Sydney. Can we talk a little bit about that, about what you're doing with that? So you're calling it, it's called the Western Sydney Aboriginal Youth Leadership Network.
Quite a mouthful.
Yes, it is, but it's good, it works, it flows.
Yeah. So how that come about, Michelle, was I am part of a lot of community boards or committees within Western Sydney in partnership with Aboriginal Affairs, and then sit on the board for Durban. I also am a board member out there. So I sit on a few things in partnership with Aboriginal Affairs, the Land Council, then other orgs within my community. And I just took a step back one day and I realised that I was the only young fella sitting at that table. And it just became so apparent to me that, you know, we need to step up as young people. If we do not step up and carry that baton, there's going to be nothing to carry no more. And it's not that I found that, the opportunities weren't there, but our young fellas, we don't have the confidence or the skills to step up and go and sit at those conversations, because we've always been told, you know, when elders speak, you listen, you don't talk, you don't sit at the table. Well, I know that for myself growing up, we were never allowed to sit at the table when my aunties spoke and my uncle spoke. But so I wanted to really come together and create a space where us as young blackfellas of Western Sydney could come. We could speak about, celebrate who we are as blackfellas, what we've accomplished in our lives or in our current careers, and then speak about the real issues that we face as young Aboriginal people, and then how we're going to kind of strategically how we're going to approach them issues and overcome them issues, not just for us, but for our future grandchildren and kids. So it's a great initiative. I've taken it up with my colleague Will Trulin. He's really been a very big support. He stands beside me on the project, and we've had 3 meetings and we've had really good attraction from blackfellas in Western Sydney. So it's just it's kind of a youth-led initiative. We're self-funded, we're self-governed, we have no funding. We come together. We made curry sausages and curry chicken last week for dinner. Just come together and yarn and speak about what we want, what decisions are being made on behalf of us and for us, but not with us. And that's the issue that I think has happened for far too long, especially for our people. So if we can change that narrative and rewrite what the decisions that are being made with our advice or our insight, I think we could create a greater future for our people, and that's the goal.
So with 3 meetings down, are you at the point of sort of unpacking? Well, clearly there would have been a lot of issues sort of come up straight away, but there's a difference between saying, you know, I've got these issues, I've got these problems, and then, okay, so what needs to be done? What can we do? What are our goals? So where are you at sort of in that process?
So I think we could fairly say that we're very much still in the inception stages. We haven't really knuckled down. We've had a few sessions about, you know, jotting down what our core goals are, what will be our pillars, how we're going to get there. But we actually have a session next month with KPMG.
Yep.
They've actually said that we can come into their office and do a You Collaborate session, which a lot of big companies go and do. So hopefully from that session we'll be able to say, this is what we want to do. Essentially we wanted it to be a voice. We want to be a voice on behalf of who we are. But yeah, it's all very far. We just want to make sure that we get the foundations of it correct.
Well, absolutely, and that does take time, and you've got to get to know each other as well.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's really important, that you have a really good solid understanding of each other. So because we all have dips. I mean, life is up and down and stuff, and so that then when those downs happen, as they inevitably will, you can all support each other so the work continues.
Yeah. We've also got a lot of support from Just Reinvest as well. So we're actually in the running for some funding. So little competition going on. So hopefully we secure that funding. But yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, good stuff.
Thanks for listening to the all-new Cuppa and a Yarn podcast, brought to you by the New South Wales Aboriginal Land Council. We love being able to bring you the inspirational stories and tales of all the brilliant people making such a key contribution to Aboriginal affairs right across this great state of ours. There's lots more to come. We'd hate for you to miss out, so hit subscribe and be sure to tell your mob. Now, back to today's yarn.
This is A Cuppa and a Yarn. I'm speaking with Renee Thomson. I'm Michelle Aleksandrovics-Lovegrove. Just popping the network to the side for a moment, but I think this is really, really great, is that you, as an Aboriginal woman, are looking at focusing on and harnessing the talents and the abilities and the camaraderie of young Aboriginal people in your area. New South Wales Aboriginal Land Council, of course, is only of late-ish, established our NSWALC Advisory Committee, of which you are a member. Mm-hmm. And I want to say, congratulations belatedly, but thank you very much, Dodda. We've just had a wonderful another cuppa delivered to the table here so that we can continue having our yarn, because you've got to have a cuppa with your yarn. We cast out around the 9 regions. You applied for Sydney Newcastle region. Obviously you were successful, etc. What was it that prompted you to want to be a part of a youth advisory committee for Land Council?
What prompted me to want to be part of the NSWALC Youth Council was that I feel like NSWALC's been a part of my life, a part of my DNA before I was even thought of. I think about, what NSWALC's role has played within my family's lives, and coming from such a political and staunch family, they've all been very strong within the land rights space. Not only my mum, but also my aunties and extended family members. And it's something that I always wanted to be involved in. I always wanted to have some sort of connection to NSWALC. I just didn't know when that would be or what capacity that would be in. So when I seen that EOI's out for the youth committee, I thought that is my opportunity to kind of run and try and really tackle that challenge, because it's something that I haven't put much thought into prior to my time with Durban, but it's something that I've always been interested in.
As you say, it's sort of part of your DNA, but and what you mentioned a little while back as well is about young people stepping up. I'm walking, I need to start jogging so I can run.
You raise a very good point. That's something I put in my application, is that our people fought so hard to get to where we are now, and if we don't step up as youth and carry that baton and continue that work, it's all done for nothing. And I think it's about really amplifying what has happened and what we need to do to move forward to make sure that we still have a voice.
When I was reading about, some of the things that you wanted to bring to the fore, being on the committee, that voice for young Aboriginal people was pretty high up on the list for you. What do you want your voice to say?
My voice, along with all the others,
yep.
All of our voices. I think we need to really gather ourselves as young Aboriginal people and come together and have our voices heard on what I said earlier about decisions that are being made on behalf of us and for us, which are going to directly affect all of us that we are not involved in. So it's about really ensuring that we are up to date with all of the policies and all of the government's kind of work they're doing around our people, and ensuring that we can come in and have that insight to what a young black fella wants to add in, because somewhere down the line, if it doesn't affect us directly, it's going to affect our grandkids or our grandkids' kids. So I think our voices will need to come in to implement change for our people.
What are some of those issues that are important for young Aboriginal people's voices to be heard? Thank you, Dodo.
Thank you.
Just had a lovely little egg and, is it egg and bacon?
Sure is.
Sure is. Beautiful. Please feel free to go through it, but I know you're talking.
Yeah.
Some of those important issues you're saying decisions are being made for you without your consultation, basically. What are some of those issues?
Some of the issues that I think impact us. I can only speak on behalf of my experience as an Aboriginal person from Western Sydney, but I often find the increasing rates of homelessness, the increasing rates of suicide, the increasing rates of unemployment, incarceration rates, of course, just opportunities in general. I find that there's such a lack of where we are as a people compared to the mainstream community, society. You know, we're constantly playing catch up and we're constantly trying to get our kids up to date with what everyone else is doing, but I think we should be the leaders in this space. Like, this is our country, this is our land. We should be the ones leading people from the front. A lot of the issues stem back to what I personally think is the lack of identity, the lack of connection to culture, the lack of connection to our laws and our protocols as Aboriginal people, because you often find that a lot of our people aren't grounded. People come to that Western Sydney Aboriginal Youth Network because that's their connection to young blackfellas. It's not, we don't have a place anymore to go to, and I think that's where it stems from. When people they don't feel like they belong, it's when they're going to go search for it, and searching for it leads to the alcohol and drug abuse and leads to the incarceration rates and a lot of other dreadful things that our people are so used to. And it's about stepping in and trying to break down them barriers. And not just one person doing it. You need a mob. You need people to stand beside you and want that change as well.
And I know you took a lot of those issues, and particularly personally yourself, with one where you went to Geneva only recently with NSWALC councillors and our CEO to attend the expert mechanism on the rights of Indigenous peoples. You did deliver an intervention. NSWALC always does deliver interventions, etc. But you in particular, and I mean, I had to listen to yours this morning. You spoke very eloquently on the issues facing Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women, especially in regards to domestic and family violence.
The message that I wanted to convey to not only the experts but to other Indigenous people from around the world is I wanted them to be aware of the lack of equality we face as Aboriginal women. Not only are we part of the Aboriginal kind of cohort, but we're also women, which makes it, we've got the double whammy. It's quite hard to break out of that. But I really wanted to bring light to something that is so important to us as women. You know, we don't get, not that we don't get it, but there's just that lack of leadership, representation, not only in parliamentarian positions, but also I feel in quite large positions, CEO positions or directors, and to talk about what we face as Aboriginal women. It's real, it's raw, it's, you know, the facts that I read out in the intervention, that is what we face with the assaults and with the domestic violence and with the loss of lives. They're increasing numbers, and something needs to be done about it to ensure that we have equal opportunities just as mainstream women.
There's a lot of brick walls that need to be knocked down. So by raising an issue as it, look, and you know, I'm sure you would have found that your, you know, compatriots from Canada in particular, I mean, very famous for, you know, missing and murdered Aboriginal women there. Did you find that there was a greater understanding or a level of understanding from the other people there that perhaps you weren't aware of?
Not more so people coming up after it and kind of agreeing or seeing eye to eye on the issues. It's quite a complex and sensitive issue, I found. But just listening to other people's interventions, I was constantly in, not awe, but just in disbelief at how not only do we get treated as First Nations people, but on an international scale, it's happening across the board. Like, it's just still just shocks me to my core that, you know, this stuff is just so real. And I think it was just about sitting back and actually listening to the other women present their interventions or ask their questions to the experts or to the panel. That's what really brought it to life. And everyone said, you know, the people from NSWALC actually said you could feel the passion within the room because it's such a taboo topic in mainstream.
This is A Cuppa and Yarn. I'm Michelle Aleksandrovics-Lovegrove. I'm speaking with Renee Thomson about Renee's recent trip to Geneva to MRIP as part of the New South Wales Aboriginal Land Council Youth Advisory Committee, and going and delivering interventions there, hearing other people's interventions, but also seeing how that plays out at an international level. With the issue of domestic violence, would you agree a lot of people don't consider that violence against a woman is also violence against any children in that family unit as well, whereas they are witnessing it or they are also subject to it. And it's male children too. So violence against women is also about violence against men because there's little boys involved too.
Yeah, I think black, white, brindle across the board. It doesn't just affect the man and the woman. It affects the kids, whether they want to speak about it or not. The kids feel it. Kids can experience so much, even just by watching their mother or being in the presence of their mother. And I think you're very right. It does affect young boys. It affects young girls. And I often hear a lot of people say you'd prefer to have 2 healthy homes than 1 toxic home, because at the end of the day, the effects are everlasting within kids. It's something that's within them. It's very dangerous. It's a very dangerous cycle.
But when you were there as well, listening to other interventions or people who delivered them, is there a standout for you? I know the Sami people, when they go there, they're pretty staunch. Anything off the top of your head where you just sort of went, oh, wow, that is amazing?
Well, probably amazing, but a lot of disbelief.
Yeah, well, true, but in terms of the strength of being able to consolidate very difficult issues into something that has a very focused line that can be delivered to the panel.
I think one of the key things that I took away from the MRIP trip was it was actually in the meeting prior to MRIP starting or commencing. It was the meeting with all the First Nations or Indigenous people from across the world. I hate using that word Indigenous, but that's what they use at the UN. It kills me because I can't remember where the person was from, but they just spoke about how prevalent child caging still was.
Child caging?
Caging, which was still happening. Hearing that, I know that I'll just never forget that. Just saying that still happens on a daily basis in our country, and the guy was up standing and was getting quite agitated and was saying, this is still happening. I have been to these meetings constantly and nothing is being done about it. So just, the fact that there's still child caging.
Why are they caging children?
He didn't go into it. He didn't speak about it. It was just, he just said that remark and then left.
And see, that plays into the whole domestic and family violence thing. It's all wrapped up and there's just all these little spokes off a wheel. It's not just about someone hitting someone else. You know, it's so big. Yeah. Okay, all right. Your observations, your learnings from it. I mean, what are some of the things that you learned from that Geneva trip?
The biggest takeout for me would be that I was closed-minded heading into the meeting, or not that I didn't immerse myself in the culture of the UN, but I was a bit confused as to, you know, there's so much emphasis going on to the UN and what we can do in the UN, but then the gap between what's happening in community.
Yeah, how does that translate to community?
Yeah, and so I had some very open and robust conversations with people from the Australian delegation, and I think my learning walking away was that it needs to be a 2-pronged approach. Like, you need to be working your backside off in community to try and get that change from the ground up, but then you also need to go at it on the top level. And I think speaking to people over there, and especially the powerful people that was over in Geneva with us, hearing what they've been working so hard for to make sure that we have been able to get a voice over there and, you know, a voice to the experts. But I'd say my biggest takeaway is that you need to ensure that whatever you're learning over in the UN, what are you bringing home to your community to try and implement that change? That's my biggest, and that's why I really want to emphasise what I'm doing in my community to make sure that we are relating to the declaration, referencing the declaration, and we're bringing that document to life, you know, because it's something that the government adopted, and it's something that we want to be able to say, well, we're relating to self-determination and the rights to language, and really push that agenda. If someone was to say to me, you know, oh, that's good, you're going over there and doing Talking Fest, but what are you doing back home? Well, I am trying to do stuff. I am doing stuff back home. It's not I'm trying. I am doing stuff back home. And my community is where my heart is. It's like I live for my community. I breathe for my community. I want to make sure that our people can stand up as a people. It's my actual goal for that Leadership Network is that we do become an organisation and we fund ourselves to go to the UN as a youth committee and stand up and say, well, these are the issues that we face in our community.
With change here, but we're talking about policy change, aren't we? And that's where, you know, your learnings at that level, that's how you got to straddle that with community. If policies have got to change. And to change policies, we need to change mindsets.
That's exactly right.
Okay. Any inspiring people in particular that you can think of, even if you can't remember their names?
Yeah, I met a chief from America, one of the Indigenous nations from over there, and we had quite a robust conversation. He actually, Kenneth, who was one of their leaders, jumped up and spoke about there was a real issue that the lack of representation of Indigenous people at the UN, because you can't just go across and represent yourself. You have to be part of an organisation.
Yeah.
And this fellow that I was yarning to, he actually jumped up and stood in protest and refused to speak because he had a parliament back home. He was part of a parliament. He just wasn't one that wasn't approved by the UN.
Okay.
So I went and had a yarn to him and kind of tried to understand how they progress as a people and how that kind of relates to us, but two completely different cultures. Like it was quite eye-opening, but he was a very inspirational person. I'd say everyone over there, especially part of the Australian delegation, everyone was quite open and to speak about their experiences or, you know, how they go home and try and implement change. But
because the Australian delegation's pretty big, isn't it? Yeah, there's a fair few people.
The Australian government with DFAT, they went, and then obviously people from different organisations come across as well. But we had a good barbecue and a yarn at the embassy.
Yeah,
which was fun. Yeah, that was fun.
And so was it a standard Australian? Was it a Bunnings Barbie or a bit posher than that? Yeah, Bunnings Barbie is just your white bread, sausage and tomato sauce.
Onion.
Onion, yes.
Yeah, it was. I think they really tried to incorporate the Aussie culture and had some lamb chops and chicken skewers. It was good. It was good feed.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
They put
That's
it on.
good. I'm glad they fed you.
We went good.
You've come back. You're working. Studies deferred for the moment. A lot going on. You've got your network. How are you juggling it? You still have time to be Renee hanging out.
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah, well, on top of that, I'm also with like I said, the LDM with Aboriginal Affairs, and then part of the committee for the Kimberwiley Centre, which is...
Oh, yes, that's right.
So in between all of that, but I think I get to be myself because I just go home to my mum. Like I go into mum's house at Millers Point and just hang around my siblings, and they always keep me grounded, make sure that I don't get too ahead of myself. And sometimes I just have to go to mum. I think sometimes it gets quite full on. I feel like I've got so many fingers in different pies. Sometimes it does get quite overwhelming. So I think just a good yarn with mum, a good debrief, and she always pulls me back into line.
Yeah, that's good.
It's about just getting grounded with my mob.
And I guess, what is it, 2019? I'm thinking, what year is it? It's August already.
I know.
So what's for the rest of the year? Keeping up with everything, but have you got any sort of strong goals? Because I think your leadership network is going to be very, very important.
If we were successful with the funding, that'd be something that I would want to take up as a full-time role.
Yeah.
So as a director of the leadership network, taking that as far as I can go, going to meetings, networking, trying to build those connections with people who we think we could work in partnership with. But that would be my main goal, is to work full-time with that, or then to go back out to community. Yeah, I always feel myself running to go back to community, but that's where my home is.
Yeah.
So I want to be able to, before anything, I just want to be able to make sure that our kids back home, not even back home, across the country, know that someone believes in them and knows that there are opportunities out there for you. You don't have to be defined by your environment or by what people are telling you are, or that you're a statistic. It's about what we want to be as black fellas, and we are the deadliest people out there, so we should just go out there and do it.
You can do Nayania Baraya, Nayania Manania, Manania, Manania.